Hi there. Today I'm going to tell you about a movie called Big Brother. So Henry, who used to work in the US military, has come back home to Hong Kong. He decides he wants to be a teacher at his old school, Tak Chi Secondary. The principal is worried because Henry hasn't taught before, but Henry shows him a special recommendation letter, and just like that, he gets the teaching job. The principal then warns him that the class he'll teach is known to be the toughest. On his first day, Henry walks into a classroom that's totally out of control. Some kids are asleep, some are singing, others are busy with video games, and there are even kids making ramen right there. And guess what? They totally ignore Henry when he comes in. He tries to get them to listen, but it's like he's invisible. Instead of getting mad, Henry just starts talking about whatever they're doing. Some students love cooking ramen, but they're told to eat less of it because it's really salty. Then, Henry goes to help a guy named Zufa who's playing the ukulele. He also talks to a kid who loves video games, telling him to be careful about the screen radiation from playing too much. Henry was trying to teach, but everyone was ignoring him. So he told them his name and put his number on the board. His writing was so bad that everyone laughed. Then a student called him, telling him to get out. But Henry just laughed. They still wouldn't listen, so he got creative. Using a rubber band and chalk, he made the fire sprinkler go off. Suddenly, all the students moved to stay dry. The teacher gets everyone to listen and says welcome to his class for the first time. After class, 5 students who don't do so well in their studies meet up in the sports supply room to have a smoke. Jack, who is kind of the boss of this group, likes a student who gets really good grades in another class. Jack gets teased by some kids for looking at a girl's picture. These kids don't get along with the rich, snobby basketball players at school. One day, they barge into the supply room, making fun of Jack for being poor. While watching the basketball team practice, Jack accidentally drops a bottle, tripping the team's leader. They all find it funny, but Miss Liang, their English teacher, doesn't. She gives them detention. Not wanting to stay, they prank Miss Liang and escape while she's distracted with her desk. The school's principal is really worried because they might get 20% less money this year from the education board. Some folks from the board visit the school to see how they've been spending their money. Meanwhile, Henry walks into a classroom where students have prepared a prank with a bucket of water above the door. Luckily for him, he reacts quickly and pushes the bucket away before getting soaked. Some students were waiting to tease Henry, but they were surprised instead. Henry noticed Jack smokes and asked for his cigarettes. Curious, Jack gave them to him. Then, Henry had a challenge for Zufa. He had to name 3 things found in cigarettes. Zufa got it right, and Henry said he could miss class for the day. This made everyone excited, and they all wanted to skip class too, banging on their desks. Henry has a smart way of teaching his students about the bad effects of smoking. Instead of just telling them it's bad for their health, he gives each student a cigarette. He then asks them to think about what it does to them, like how it puts tar in their lungs. For once, the students really listen and want to learn more. When class ends, Henry asks for the cigarettes back, and the students give them back, even though they didn't really want to. One day in the cafeteria, the basketball team's captain tripped Jack's friend Bruce. This caused a big argument between their groups, and they started a food fight. They even threw tables around, making a huge mess. Later, the teacher Henry found out that 5 students, including Jack, were suspended for starting the fight. Henry caught Jack in another fight in the hallway and broke it up. Jack gets really upset and says the school is not fair. He thinks that if you're rich, you don't get into trouble. Later that day, Henry decides to look into the backgrounds of the 5 students. He starts with Zufa, whose family came from Pakistan. People often treat Zufa unfairly, thinking he's done something wrong just because of where he's from. Zufa dreams of making music one day. Then there's Dinan, a girl who's been trying hard to make her dad proud. Her dad always wanted a son instead of a daughter, and this makes Dinan feel like she has to work extra hard. She decided to cut her hair short and played with cars, pretending to be a boy. But her dad didn't really pay attention to her. He was always more focused on her younger brother, treating him like he was something special. Then there's Bruce and Chris, 2 brothers whose mom left with another man when they were just kids. That left their dad to turn to drinking. Growing up, it was just the 2 brothers against the world. Bruce got really into video games, using them to get away from the harsh reality, while Chris worked hard at a grocery store, trying to earn enough to support them. Henry can't find out where Jack comes from. Next, we see Jack working as a waiter. A man who bets on MMA fights, named Jianying, comes in with his friends. Jack tries to take Jianying's nice lighter when he's not looking, but he gets caught. Jianying's friends beat Jack up, but when they see his ID and find out he's a student, Jianying feels a bit sorry for him. He gives Jack some money and even offers him a job delivering food. Henry went to Zufa's house and saw Zufa trying to escape from his dad and his friends because Zufa had taken a ticket. Initially, Henry helped Zufa, but when he learned why Zufa was running away, he sided with Zufa's dad. Later, Henry and Zufa spent time together on a bridge, and Henry sang with a street band to encourage Zufa. Zufa joined in, singing publicly for the first time since being bullied at school. Elsewhere, Bruce and Chris's dad got home late again and demanded a beer from the store. When the brothers said no, he kicked them out. The next day, Henry talked to their dad and got him to agree to rehab for his son's sake. Meanwhile, Dinan was upset when her dad gave her makeup and told her to act like a girl. She put the makeup on her brother instead and tried to drive off in their dad's car, but Henry stopped her. He took her to a go-kart track and invited her dad, who raced against Dinan. They both raced fiercely until Dinan's cart nearly got hit, making her dad think she was hurt. When he found out she was okay, they hugged. The next day, Bruce and Chris had to interview someone in rehab for a school project. 2 students had to interview someone. They found out the person is their dad. He shared he began drinking because his wife left him when he was very sad and he forgot he had kids. He didn't know they were his sons, but said sorry. This left the brothers in tears. Meanwhile, Jack got a job with Jianying, who bets on MMA fights. Jianying told Jack he'd pay him well to put something in a fighter's drink at the next match. Jack didn't want to, but he ended up having to accept the offer. On the fight day, Jianying supports a fighter but also secretly bets money on the fighter losing. Jack tries to cheat by putting drugs in the fighter's drink, but he gets caught. Before he can point fingers at Jianying, he gets beaten up and shoved into a locker. Later on, Henry comes looking for his student, asking the fighters if they've seen him. Some guys tell Jack to get back home, but Jack shouts for help from inside a locker. When Henry finds out Jack is locked up, he jumps into action and beats them up without much trouble. Things heat up when more fighters join in, but Henry is too quick for them. He even takes down their star fighter, who was about to compete. Later on, we see Henry in the hospital, getting his injuries looked after. Jack wanted to tell everyone the real story about Jianying, but he was quickly silenced. Suddenly, the story was all over the TV, and Henry became famous as the hero who fought a professional fighter to protect his student. This made him very popular at school, and all the students began to respect him a lot. The students were happy to see Henry, and they all stood up to say hi to him. This was different from how things used to be. There's a look back at the past that shows Henry was quite the troublemaker back in school days. He would play pranks, like tossing water balloons at another kid who was playing piano during a school event for parents. Things got more serious when he ended up fighting that student, which led to the student's hand getting hurt. Because of this fight, Henry was suspended and had to move to the States. From that day, all the students start listening carefully whenever Henry teaches and work hard for the big college test. They all do really well, but Bruce is having a tough time because he got into pills. It seems like while Chris got busy with video games to not think about his family issues, Bruce chose drugs. This makes Bruce lose focus and not do well in a practice test for college. Henry says he will help him, but Bruce gets sadder as days go by. Sadly, one day, Bruce jumps off their house's balcony. He is quickly taken to the hospital and ends up in a coma. The news makes the story sound different and says the school and Henry are at fault for what Bruce did. People from the education board talk to Henry and choose to take away his license to teach. One day, a beloved school teacher named Henry decides to leave the school. His students are really sad and run after him, begging him to stay. They realize how much they'll miss him, but decide to work extra hard for their big test to show everyone that Henry has taught them well. They start studying a lot more, wanting to make Henry proud. Right before the exam, Henry sends a message to his students, asking them to come early to school. The students are surprised and all meet up at school, only to find out it was a prank by someone named Jianying. Jianying wanted to mess things up so the students would miss their exam, all to get back at Henry. Henry got to school and learned about Jianying's plan. He freed the students and battled Jianying's gang to keep the kids safe. They ran fast to the exam hall while Henry was busy fighting Jianying. Henry and Jianying ended up fighting, and during the fight, Jianying told Henry something big. He was the kid Henry hit with water balloons when they were younger. Because of that, Jianying couldn't be in a music contest since he broke his arm, and he never played the piano again. He thinks Henry ruined his dream. Henry tried to talk to him, but they ended up fighting for a knife. Henry could have hurt Jianying, but chose not to. He said he was sorry for what happened years ago and walked away. After all that, Henry and the students made it just in time to take their test. A few weeks later, everyone does really well and passes with top marks. Jianying starts playing the piano again, but he knows he needs to practice a lot to get as good as before. Bruce gets better quickly and says he'll try the entrance test again next year. The principal is super happy because the school gets extra money since the students did great on the test. Henry goes back to teaching and pulls off his cool fire sprinkle trick with a new group of students. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos, hit the notification bell, and leave a like to support the channel. Thanks for watching.